All right, good news for me. Jaron Ennis calls out Keith Thurman and eyes getting the mandatory positions to fight Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. Great plan from the young man. I think that it will get him on the path to being one of the greatest fighters in boxing and dominate the welterweight division at a point. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So in this video, I'm going to talk about Jaron Ennis, Keith Thurman, Errol Spence, Terence Crawford in the welterweight division. Before I get into that, though, please make sure that you follow me over on Instagram, and also please make sure you come to the live streams that we do Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. and Saturday and Sunday at 8:30 a.m. Right here on this channel. Oh, man, I love this. Jaron Ennis actually called out Keith Thurman and said, well, you know, when you say call out, he says a very mild-mannered guy like that, him saying, yeah, the fights that I'd like to have, I think good fights for me would be Keith Thurman and Yordenis Ugas. And then he said also in a separate interview that he didn't really believe that he was going to get the voluntary fights from the champions, so he accepts the notion that he's going to have to force himself upon them by getting the mandatory position. Right now, in my opinion, Jaron Ennis is a top 3 welterweight. That is in my opinion, and that is based off of his ability, not his resume. I understand that when I call him a top 3 welterweight, people will say, well, he's not done anything. Look at what Manny Pacquiao has done. He's not done anything. Look what Keith Thurman has done. He's not done anything. Look what Sean Porter has done, right? I understand all that. However, in certain circumstances in boxing, there are guys that just have the talent and the ability to overcome lack of experience. If a guy is just say, for example, a guy is a B-level fighter that has A-level experience, but then you have a guy that has A-plus level athleticism, A-plus level skill, right, and B-level experience. That A-plus fighter is going to beat that B fighter because the B fighter doesn't have enough just basically in himself, regardless of the experience, to overcome the guy. It's just, it doesn't, for example, at heavyweight, it really does not matter how long Dillian Whyte fights, right? I know you might not like this example of your Dillian Whyte fight. I don't care who he beats. I don't care who he wins, how many fights he's had. I don't care. He gets in the ring with Deontay Wilder's knocking him out. Just forget it. And in fact, give a guy like Jaron Anderson about a year, and Jaron Anderson will beat Dillian Whyte with less than 15 fights. Jaron Anderson is that much better a talent than Dillian Whyte. He's that much more skilled than Dillian Whyte. And I'm telling you, Jaron Anderson would be a world of problems for Dillian Whyte. Same thing with Jaron Ennis and any of these welterweights, man. And that's because of his skill, his size, his skills, his power, and just the dude is a whole lot. He ran through a gatekeeper last weekend in Sergey Lipinets, and I'm saying he ran through the gatekeeper. Having him barely beat a gatekeeper, then I think that's when you ask some questions. But when you have a gatekeeper like Sergey Lipinets, who you'd put money on dang near to go the distance with almost any welterweight, to see him just run through him like that, sorry, that impressed me. But reasonable people could say that doesn't mean that he's going to be able to beat Keith Thurman. He may not be able to beat him, but I argue that he's definitely ready for the fight because there's nobody Keith Thurman is going to be fighting outside of a champion that is nearly the competition level of a Jaron Ennis. So that in and of itself for me means he's ready for the fight. Keith Thurman doesn't have a better option, and quite honestly, there's no non-champion in the weight division really that it's a tougher fight for anybody in the weight division than Jaron Ennis. But understand, Keith Thurman, though, would be an absolutely fantastic test, and he would put him, and like I said in the video before, there's a lot of fans calling for this fight. A lot of fans saying, oh, man, I want to see Jaron Ennis and Keith Thurman because Keith Thurman is asking for another shot, right? he's saying, I deserve to get another shot against Errol Spence for his belts. He's really not talking about Terence Crawford. He says he don't care about Terence Crawford. That's the WB no. Who cares about that belt? And plus, Terence Crawford, is not going to fight him. But anyway, this would be a great this would be a really great step-up fight for Jaron Ennis. It would be if Keith Thurman was able to beat him, man, he's right back where he's supposed to be. But if that happens, Jaron Ennis beats Keith Thurman still is not a champion. So Jaron Ennis is still going to have to move forward and do something else. And that's why I like that he said that he would be willing to go and fight and get himself to be in the mandatory position. Because if he does that, I think he really does protect himself in a lot of ways. Number one, Terence Crawford is not going to fight him unless he's a mandatory. Just not going to do it, right? Terence Crawford against Sean Porter was like, yeah, you want to be my mandatory, file your mandatory paperwork, and then I'll fight you, which meant that would be a 75-25 split for Terence Crawford. And, with Keith Thurman, with Sean Porter, dude, that's going to be a no-go with him because this is a guy that ain't going to fight you for less than $4 million, $4 million at least. He ain't going to fight for $2 million because, the difference between $2 million and $3 million is a solid $1 million. So, more than likely he's not going to do it. That means Jaron Ennis is going to have to get himself into a mandatory position. So, and I'll tell you this, though, if it was Jaron Ennis that was in the mandatory position with the WBO, then that 75-25 split, I bet you money Jaron Ennis would take that. He was like, okay, no problem, 75-25, I'm in it. Let's go, right? Oh, and I don't accept your you give me less than 75%, 25%, we're going to go to purse bid. And guess what? If that goes to purse bid, you got Triller, you got the PBC, they can bid on that fight. So I love the angle of Jaron Ennis going to get the mandatory for the WBO. As far as the getting to be the mandatory in the other three belts, I don't know if that's going to be necessary to get the fight with Errol Spence because, dude, Errol Spence Jr. is a man. Errol Spence Jr. is going to fight this dude. Just no doubt in my mind that if he's in the weight class and he's undisputed, if he doesn't have another fight where he's like, I can't make this weight class, I'm going to 154, dude, he'll fight Jaron Ennis. But even Jaron Ennis himself said he thinks that fight with Errol Spence would probably happen at 154. It wouldn't happen at 147. So Jaron Ennis getting that mandatory position would be very important in those, or at very least getting very highly ranked in at least the WBA and the IBF. IBF, I think, for him is the most important. The IBF and the WBO. If Jaron Ennis can become mandatory for the IBF, that means if Errol Spence moves up, then Jaron Ennis is going to get a shot at that IBF, and the IBF is not going to mess with him. The IBF does not have a reputation for playing games. They actually strip Canelo Alvarez. So it protects Jaron Ennis in case Errol Spence Jr. moves up, and then now you're going to have the 140 pounders coming up all of a sudden looking to get those belts that got vacated by Errol Spence. If Jaron Ennis is there and is in a mandatory position, I'm telling you, those top-ranked fighters are going to go somewhere else. They're going to go to the other. They're going to stay at that weight class, or they're going to try to get into a sanctioning body that he's not ranked in or he's not the champion in, because he will beat Teofimo Lopez. He will beat Josh Taylor. He will beat Jose Ramirez. He will beat Ugas, right? So anyway, I'm really excited about it. I'm going to continue to talk about this kid because I think he's one of the brightest lights in boxing. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.